Hello and welcome to Model Kit Stuff. I have a first impressions video for you today focusing on this. It's the newly released Hurricane Mark II-C Tropical from Arma Hobby in 1:48 scale. It's a 2023 tooling and it's the second release of the tooling. So let's have a look. So this is the second release of the Hurricane Mark II-C from Arma Hobby. Earlier this year they released the Mark II-C in its normal guise, I guess you'd say, and that was kit number 4004. And now they've released this one, the next iteration up, and this is the tropical version. So we're expecting to see pretty much the same kit but with different paint schemes and therefore different decals. But this is the first time I've had an Arma Hobby kit, so I'm interested to see what all the talk is about. Now, as I record this on the 20th of September 2023, this is still showing as on pre-order in many of the UK online shops. I pre-ordered this direct from the manufacturer, so I suspect that this will be hitting the shops. Stock will be landing in the shops in the next few days if it's not already done so. So let's have a look. Box is interesting. It's a side opening box, but inside the box is a tray with all the parts. So as it's in a tray, I don't mind the fact that it's side opening. Yes, top opening gives you a bit better access, but the tray works fine and it gives you an ability to put it all away again when you've done. We've got some lovely artwork on the top showing the tropical hurricane in action, and clearly this will be one of the paint schemes that we can do, and we can see the spent bullet cases flying out of the wings there, and the bombs dropping, and the cannons firing. So a really nice piece of artwork, draws you into the subject. It tells us that it's 148, that it's Arma Hobby, and that the contains a plastic kit, decals and masks. That's important because this isn't one of their expert kits. So if you get a kit that says expert underneath the logo, that's when they add the photo etch. So I'm not expecting to see any photo etch in here. Right, as we go to the side of the box, we've got a repeat of what's in there. Tells us in addition that we've got decals for 3 different versions, and we've got masks in there as well. The sides pretty much cover off what's on the top of the box. On this side we have contact details and the sort of health and safety information, and then on the back of the box we have this really lovely imagery of the 3 paint schemes. So I've not seen anyone do it quite like this before, and it's really nice. So Airfix, for example, will put them down the side of the box, but this is really a nice large, it's almost, I would guess, almost to scale by the size of it, and it tells us that we've got a Hurricane Mark II Tropical Hurry Bomber, LB792, 34 Squadron, RAF SEAC Deragon, I don't know where that is, Manpower Spring 1944, and tells us the pilot as well, Squadron Leader CPN Newman. So that is sort of the green-brown tropical sort of tan orangey yellow colour. Some interesting decal there of some form of green monster type thing, and the white spinner there looks quite distinctive. Beneath that you've got the more traditional tropical camouflage, which is on both of the next ones, although in a different array, and the red spinner. And those of you that follow the channel know that I did the Airfix 1/48 scale tropical hurricane last year, and this is the same sort of camouflage. And again, it says underneath Hurricane Mark II tropical HL885 AXZ 1 Squadron SAAF Lieutenant Stuart Bomb Finney LG 142 Egypt September 1942. And then below that, the last one is Hurricane Mark IIc Tropical HL851 / GOP, although you can see that it's sort of faded out there. The Mac Roberts Fighter Sir Ian 94 Squadron RAF L Gamil Airfield Egypt 1942-1943. So yeah, very interesting. We've got interesting decals on all of them, interesting scheme. Interested in this faded decal, we'll have a look at the decals later. So yeah, that's our 3 schemes. All looks lovely. So what do we get in the box? Well, like I said, the box comes as a tray and all our parts are in a single resealable bag, and we'll have a look at that lot in a moment and see exactly what we've got. And then we've got our instructions, and within our instructions we've got our decals and our masks. So I usually have a look at the instructions first, but what we're going to do is just have a look at how many sprues we get and what other contents we might have in there. Now I'm being very careful because I could hear something rattling around, which actually turns out to be an ejector pin, so we don't need to worry about it. So we get one sprue that appears to be damaged, or are they just crossed over in the box? Yeah, they're not damaged. Okay, one sprue. I've got a bag with 3D printed cannons. I've got a bag with 3D printed exhausts, and I think these 2 are additional items for having the kit on pre-order, so you may not get them, or if you've pre-ordered it you may get these. I think that's how it's working. We've got a separate bag, again Ziploc, with our clear parts in. Then we've got another 2 sprues of plastic parts. So let's have a look at our instructions. So our instructions are an A4 fairly glossy colour stapled instruction manual. At the top here it gives us our kit number 40005. We have a health and safety notice, and then we have a brief bit of history. Then we've got our sprue map, so the 3 sprues plus the clear plus our masks plus our decals. So we've got a good idea of what we should be getting in the kit. So we've just done a quick check, we had all that, so we should be good. Then we've got our paint callouts, and what they're doing is they're assigning each paint a letter, and then cross-referencing that colour with different manufacturers. So this top one, for example, matte silver, FS Federal Standard 37178, and then it gives us an attacker reference, an AK real colour reference, a life colour reference, a Megamo reference, a Humbrol reference, a Vallejo reference, and a Tamiya reference. So that's really good, and I can instantly see we haven't got a range of paints where there's a colour missing, so everything's coloured. So it's really handy that we've got so many brands being cross-referenced and it does caveat that this is an approximate colour. So you might want to do your own research and choose a combination of different paint systems depending on what you think works best for the colour that you need. Then at the bottom it says there is more advice on building this kit on the Arma Hobby page, and gives you directions to get straight to it. Contact details again, and then we've got our key. So fairly simple 8 icon key. Turning over the page, the very first impression I get is this looks very reminiscent of an Eduard instruction. We've got the boxes, we've got the colour, the arrows, the line drawings are simple and clear. So that's the first thing I'm noticing, is that they're very reminiscent of Eduard instructions. And Eduard instructions, in terms of clarity, nothing wrong with those at all. So hopefully this will be the same. We start before step 1 with a choice A or B, and that really is whether you're going to have auxiliary tanks on or bombs on, and which case you need to do some drilling. They even blow it up so you can see clearly which the 2 red ones for the auxiliary tanks and the 4 blue ones for the bombs. What they don't say, I don't think, I'm just trying to read this, drill appropriate holes from inside. Use the bombs for painting option 1. You can use auxiliary tanks for painting option 3. What it doesn't say is what size that drill bit needs to be, so that's a little bit of an omission. You've got to assume the impressions they've left are the correct size, but I tend to do them a little bit undersized, and then if needs be, open them up when we're test fitting the parts. Okay, so step 1, and we're actually building up the gear bay. So we're putting this gear bay bulk. So we've got a gas tank going on, a couple of other parts on there, look like some form of struts, don't they? Then in 2, we're building up the bulkhead further. Looks all very detailed, and then joining step 1 and step 2 together, and adding a top to that. Then you can see the little symbol that says flip it around, and it says wheel wells with the underside colour of chosen paint scheme. So depending on what paint scheme you're doing, what colour you're going to do in there, plus do a little bit of research. But it does tell you that this part that's going in here should be painted in brass. So you probably need to paint all of that, weather it, and then insert the brass thing. So already we've got relatively detailed build right from the off, haven't we? Nice that they're telling us the paint colours as well. So it's saying A here, which we know is silver, or more likely aluminium. Yeah, okay. So, but the underside bit is the colour of your chosen paint scheme. 5, we've got the pilot seat, 3 parts plus the adjusting. Again, that all feels very much like how Eduard would do it. Then we're adding the star, I think is Decals, is it? Just bear with me. Star Decals, yes. So the seat harnesses are Decals, so that's interesting. And then we've got the armour plate that goes behind it. Step 7, painting options. Make new hole in, new position, coloured red, or the old one coloured blue, fill in and remove. So for all paint options, right, so you have to do that no matter what, with code letters on the main hull. Remove for painting option 3 with code letters on the main hull. So whatever that is, we have to remove that on option 3. Then step 8, we're installing the gear bay into, I'm guessing that's the upper wing, otherwise it'd be back to front, wouldn't it? Yeah. Then we've got the lamps going in. What's it telling us? For better fit, remove red marked part from the stringers from inner side of the wing. Right, okay, so what it's showing us there is just where that red block is, there's a little strip, and what it's saying is just remove that so that that part fits better. So probably something they found during the test build, and they put it in, rather than modifying the tool, they decided to put it in the instructions, which is, you know, fair enough. They could have just not told us and left it to our imagination. Then in step 9, we're bringing the 2 wing halves together. So fairly traditional approach to the wing assembly. Step 10, we're starting to build up the interior components. So it's more of a framework in a Hurricane. You don't really have a floor, you just have these little footwells. So yeah. We've got, this is all being painted in the silver. It says wood. Don't know quite what that means. That's been painted in C, which is cockpit green, I think. Yeah, interior grey green. So yeah, we've got lots of framework going in, pedals going in. Looks like we've got a fairly complex coupling for the flight stick, which is nice, and some close-up instructions on the painting, which is also nice. Then we're putting the seat in. So we're putting the seat in step 14, and we made it in step 5 and 6. So I question why you do that, really. I'd be putting that in, then making the seat, then adding it in. But yeah, build sequence doesn't seem to make a lot of sense there. Then we've got a couple more parts going into the landing gear. Why those didn't go in before, don't know. Jumping around a little bit, the instructions, I feel that's how it's coming across to me. Then we've got, okay, we've got decals going on there, and it's telling you to cut the decals into sections for a better fit. So you've got a raised rectangular area there, so cut that out. And also the same with that. So I wonder if that's full size. Let's have a check, because whether that's a full size cutting template. Yeah, it looks to me like it is. Yeah, so that's good. That's handy. Or you could use the decals as a guide for painting the raised parts, maybe. Which I think sometimes when you've got moulded details like that, painting them is often better. Or you might want to stamp out the individual dials and put them in as individual dials. Worth looking at. We've got some interior parts going in. More interior cockpit painting and individual parts. Quite a lot of separate parts. So that's nice. They should be crisper moulding, but of course it means you've then got to clean up on some fiddly parts. Then we've got the 2 fuselage halves going together, and then that sits over the top. And for model with closed canopy, remove rails marked with red. Okay, so the canopy will fit better if you remove those. That's worth knowing, but you were at a decision point then. And for me, you'd probably do that before you put the 2 halves together, when it's easier to work with. Right. radiator and its housing going in. So they've made that right. Okay, this is really interesting because usually that's two halves that comes together, and the way they've made that means you're not going to have a seam to clean up down the middle, so that's really nice. And the join is on a join line anyway, so that's a really nice thought. And then we've got this separate piece that's going in down the rear of the fuselage, the tail. Building up the tail bits now. So again, we've got two halves, so we're probably going to have some clean up. Then we've got the tail wheel going in. Looks like our main wheels are two halves with the hubs already moulded in. They also look like they're probably weighted, which will be good. Well, I say that, it's a bit catch-22 with weighted wheels. They're great if you want to have the aircraft on the ground with the landing gear down, but if you want the landing gear down and you want to put it on a stand so it's in flight, you don't want the weighted wheel look. So catch-22. Right, following on with building up the landing gear, we've got for marking options 2 and 3 use part number A66, and flush with the wing surface for marking options 1 use part A67. So they must be slightly different shapes, I'd imagine. Step 31, we've got the little compass going in. I think it's a compass anyway. Step 33, and we're starting to add the details. So we've got the little foot stirrup going in. We've got pit-top tube. It's not telling you what any of these things are. It's just things I've picked up over time. I don't really know a lot about aircraft, really. We've got the little wingtip lenses going in, the light lenses, and the guns. So we've got those as plastic parts, and we've also got those as 3D printed parts, which is good. And it says for marking option 2, do not use parts C5, which is the 2 outer cannons, and fill the hole. Right, so if you're doing option 2, you've only got 2, not 4 cannons. Step 33, we're putting on the air scoop, the exhausts. We've got those little lumps just behind the propeller and the propeller, 2 different spinners. Depending on which option you're doing, and it's telling you to remove, on the aerial, remove that little leg that's kicking out the back. Yep, so that's all good. Step 34 is fixing the canopy and removing this little bit on the top of the tail there. Step 35 is drop tanks being constructed. We've got decals to go on there as well, so that all looks nice. And then step 36 is building up the bombs if you're using the bombs. Then step 37 shows you the positions for adding either bombs or drop tanks. So you can't have both on because they go in the same location, but we saw that right at the start of the build. And that completes our build, 37 steps. So a lot less steps than Airfix have in their Hurricane. But yeah, very interesting. So that gives us then the paint schemes. So we've got paint scheme 1. We saw these on the back of the box, but it's telling you where to put the decals. It's calling out the colours of the main items. We get a front view of the propeller, so very much like Airfix ones. There is some stencils going on underneath, but somehow it feels a little bit light on the stencils, but I'm guessing they're all there. Don't know, might just be my imagination. And yeah, that all looks good. This is probably the one I will do because in 148 I've already done a tropical that looks a bit like this. But that doesn't that blue look vivid? That's not, in fact it looks more vivid than that. And it's the same blue, K. Doesn't quite look like that in real life, but that looks quite bright, doesn't it? But I've already done one in a colour scheme like that, so it'd be nice to have a second one next to it that's different. But it looks great with the blue, the red spinner. You've got oops on the back, so I imagine they had an accident or something. And what looks like a prancing deer decal on there. And then on 3, it's very similar, but as we saw from the instructions, there's some different options. It tells you that it's an option to put the letters there, and it's an option to put the G on or not. So not quite sure what that's all about. Doesn't really tell you why. Right, okay. And the drop tanks are shown in a different colour, although not shown on from the side preview. Right, okay. So this will be a slightly different configuration to the Airfix one that I've already built. Right, that's the instructions done, so let's have a look at the decals. So our decals come with a protective bit of tissue paper. Always handy to keep these bits of tissue paper. They can be useful for making tarpaulins and things like that, soaked in a bit of watered down white glue. So these are Tech Mod decals, produced for Arma. I think they're I can't remember if they're Polish or Ukrainian. Beg your pardon. But what we've got here is we've got the roundel markings. There is a little bit of decal fill margin, but it's not excessive, and they don't feel too thick, but not as thin as Cartograph. You can definitely tell they're there. Register looks good as well, from what I can see. And then we've got this decal option here where you've got the outline of the G, but it's not been painted in yet, or it's been painted out or something, or you can use the fully white G. So I guess there's photographic evidence of both. Then we've got this, the Mac Robert Fighter Sir Ian, which is a decal you can put on. I think that was on option 3, wasn't it? And then we've got a baloney. It's like a frog or something decal. And then we've got this prancing deer as well. There's our harnesses. They look nicely printed. Quite glossy though, so if you do use the decals, you probably want to matte coat them down afterwards. But yeah, and then we've got our stencils, our dials, interior details with some plates. So that's all very nice actually. That all looks really, really nice. Yeah, nothing wrong with those, I don't think. All looks quite sharp, really good. Also, we get a set of masks. These cover wheels and the canopy, the die cut. So nice and easy to use. So that's a really nice addition. Saves you having to go out and buy some. So that's really lovely. Also in the kit, and again, I think this is just with the pre-orders, but not with the main kit sales thereafter, is these printed parts. So firstly, we've got these really nice exhausts, and you perhaps can't see this, but I can. I've only got my reading glasses on. But there is the end of the fishtail is countersunk, so they will look rather nice when on. Yeah, I think a bit difficult to see in this what should we call it, prawn pink colour. It's a little bit difficult to see the detail. And then we've also got the gun barrels, which are 2 different lengths. So let's get those out as well. So we've got 4 at that length and 4 longer ones. Okay, not sure which ones. We'd have to compare them to the plastic parts come the time, but they are really nice. Lots of texture detail on them. They will look the part when on. Yeah. Right, so let's start having a look at the plastic. We'll take some photographs as we go. So we'll talk through the sprue and I'll take some photographs and you can have a closer look. So let's crack on with that. Right then, let's start with Sprue A, right here down in the corner with a little letter A, so we know it's Sprue A. And what have we got on here? Well, we've got the tail sections, bit of undercarriage, a lot of the internal frames, we've got the wheels, we've got the gear bay parts as well. So we've got a whole collection of bits and pieces here. So it's not like they've grouped everything together and gone, right, everything on A is interior. So it's spread out. They've designed it to pack everything in as much as they can. Now I've got to say, first thing that happened when I put this sprue on the mat is I realised that it was proud, and it's proud because it's got these legs here. And then I saw these here and I got really excited and thought, that's brilliant. That's what I've been saying that people should do. I think I said this only 2 or 3 videos ago, that if you had these in the corners of the sprues, you could stack your sprues in the box. You wouldn't need a plastic bag or any other packaging. As long as they were tight to the box, you could plop them in and these would travel brilliantly. So I got really excited. I thought, finally, someone's doing what I thought would be a good idea. But actually, no. Because they're all in different places and they're different sizes. So they have them on each sprue, but it's to allow them to stack the same sprue in the factory. Or wherever they package them. So a bit of a missed opportunity, unfortunately. It's like someone nearly had a good idea, but didn't quite take it to its full potential. So we don't need the bag if you can stack the sprues on top of each other and space them out and put them in a box that fits appropriately. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about these parts. And my eye is immediately drawn to these wheels, because you can see right through that hub. I've never seen that before on a 148 wheel. No, none of the kits I have it like that. That's a lovely detail. And then you've got the sidewall writing on there, which, you know, recently I've just reviewed an Airfix kit and they didn't get it on a 135 tyre, but we've got it on a 148 tyre here. So it's doable. Definitely doable. Looks really, really nice. The detail is really popping out at me. It's the same with the tail here. You can feel the detail, feel the raised rivets. There is a little bit of flash. Yeah, there's a little bit of flash, nothing major. Gentle scrape will take that off. But yeah, it is really nicely detailed. Same with these parts here. The Airfix parts were slightly chunkier than this, I seem to recall. These are definitely finer, very nice, and fine detail in there as well. Some ridges. There's some texturing. You can just see the ribs there, little undulations. That's really nice. Lots and lots of rivet detail on there, which is good to see. Surface detail, all the rivets are raised. That's a very nice point as well. Very thin cage, some real finesse to the cage there. And same with the landing gear. In fact, I mean, it appears to be a nice hard plastic, but I'm worried about how strong they'll be. The exhausts, not too bad, but they're not like the 3D printed parts. The tail looks really nice and sharp. All the detail is very, very sharp. It's lovely. There's that hose that we paint, brass, gas tank. They've not just put a band around it, they've put the part band around it with a little fastener in the middle. You'll see it when I take photos in a minute. Dials all lovely and crisp. Nice riveting detail on that armoured bulkhead. Really, really delicate parts on here as well. Really nice. Okay, now I'm starting to see what everyone's going on about. It is really quite lovely, although we do have some sink there and in the same place there. So it becomes quite a thick part there. That's probably a bit of cooling sink. Probably this was taken out just a little bit too quick, possibly. Which is a shame, because there's nothing you're going to be able to do about it. You're going to have to put up with it, because you can't fill that, because it's right where 3 rows of rivets join. So yeah, it will be noticeable, I think, without a shadow of a doubt. And you can't replace the raised rivets, so yeah. And if we flick on the other side, I keep seeing these funny little lumps. So wherever there's an ejector pin mark, they seem to have these rows of lumps. So it must be something to do with ejecting the parts from the tool, but I have never seen that before. That is most odd. But yeah, you've got it there. Any surface that isn't going to be seen, that's the back behind the dials, for example. We've got these parts. We've got some lovely detail though. This is the roof of the landing gear, for want of a better term. It's lovely, crisp detail. Same with the landing gear panels there. Really nice. All the rivets on there. I mean, you've got on that little edge there, you've got 2 rows of rivets. It's just incredible. It's really, really nice. Right, let's take some photos of that. Right, Sprue B now, and we've got our 2 fuselage halves, drop tanks, propeller, bombs, and it's a nicely laid out, organised sprue. My eye is being drawn to the air intake for the radiators. Look how fine that is. It's not a big chunky thing that looks okay. It looks superb. It really does look nice, that. Nice and thin, looks very authentic. We've got our 2 spinners now. Unfortunately, one of them is detached. Both of these were bent in. Fortunately, the sprue gates attach on the back surface, so we're not going to get any surface damage. But they do stick up quite a bit, and because they're all in one bag, you can see how that's happening. So again, if all the sprues were the same size and they stacked in this corner on top of each other, you wouldn't have any of that. Something for Arma Hobbies to think about. You're nearly there. You just need that one further step of getting all of them aligned so you can stack them, and I think you're onto a winner. Bombs look nice. Nice detail on the fins and at the end there. Nice and thin, so they're going to look good. You've got nice little subtle difference with the spinners, slight difference in shape, and you've also got a line on one of them, a little ring. Radiator texturing is super fine, really nice. Yeah, and we've got We've got sidewall writing on the tail wheel. That's fabulous. I don't think I've ever seen that before. That's really nice. And what they've not done is we haven't got lots of parts. We haven't got parts for the sake of it. So you take the tail wheel, they haven't turned that into 3 different parts, a tyre, a hub and the linkage. They've moulded it all in, and they've concentrated on doing a good job of the moulding and getting all the detail, as much detail in as they can. It's absolutely superb. Yeah, then we've got another set of exhausts here. These are the ones that we have the resin, the 3D printed replacements for. And there's nothing much wrong with those actually in kit form, other than you've got the solid ends to the exhaust that the 3D parts give you that advantage. Got the spinner backs there for the different spinners, and that part I think goes into there. Yeah, nice surface detail on the air scoop, and unlike that, it is 2 parts, so there will be a seam. And then we've got our fuselage halves. The texturing is lovely. You can really feel that, and again we've got some raised details on there, and then we've got all these bolts which are countersunk in and look right. Quite often it's like it's done like a sort of a donut that sticks out proud, but this is all nice and countersunk as it should be, so looks really lovely. Really lovely indeed, actually. Very, very nice. And I mean, you can't, when you look straight on at it, you can't see it, but as I turn it around in the light, I can see, and then I can feel rows of very, very subtle raised rivets. So they'll probably pick them up on camera. And there's all sorts of little hatches and covers and things there that look great. I think we have, yeah, we have. So where we've got the document holder and that little rectangular lump on the inside, that's caused some sink on that side. You're smooth there, so you could fill it, or you could just say, well, you know, it's just dense. But yeah, it is going to be noticeable. I can see it in the light now, so as soon as you put a primer on that, it'll stare you in the face like you wouldn't believe. But I mean, it looks really lovely, really, really nice. And then we've got more of these funny ejector pin lumps, but I'm sure they're not getting in the way because of their positions. I'm sure they thought about that. But yeah, all looks really nice, lovely and crisp. No significant issues. We've got sprue gates on the blades, which anyone who follows my channel knows is a pet hate of mine. No need to do that, really. They can, I mean, what they could do is actually do the 3 blades individually, have the flow of plastic come in from the root there, which is the bit that they attach onto the gate, and you cut that off and then you glue it into the ring, rather than, you know, because the cleanup on there can be a right faff. And you're at risk of misshaping your propeller and all sorts if you're not careful. So doable, but a pain, and there's other ways of doing it. But lovely, nothing wrong with any of that. Right, final sprue is C, and it's just our wings and cannons here. So we've got, we've already seen some cannons, we've got cannons here, so there's various different variants being covered off in the one sprue. We can see there's quite a bit of flash on the sprue, but I don't see that there's any on the parts. And I'm looking really closely and I don't see any sink or issues like that. What we do have is some rather large sprue gates on that surface, so you're going to have to do a lot of careful sanding, which is going to be really tricky because of all the raised rivet detail. Although it feels like some of it is actually countersunk on this leading edge here, so you might be lucky. Yeah, but there are some quite thick connecting points there, so very careful cleanup required, with maximum magnification so you can see what you're doing. But I mean, the detail is stunning. I mean, they must have every rivet that was ever on there. It is absolutely lovely. Nice texturing on the ailerons and flaps there. Hinges are nice and thin. They look really subtle, and the whole thing feels like it's much more to scale than some of the chunkier older kits that I've seen in the past. So yeah, you get a real nice feeling that everything's correct somehow. Yeah, I mean, raised detail around the radiator cover area. Yeah, and I think these are the parts that we have to remove, these little raised areas. So again, very tricky, small details, very sharp chisel to remove those. Very nice. Same with the top wing surfaces. All of the fastener detail is on there. Really lovely. Yeah, I am deeply impressed. That is really nice. Gosh, it's breathtaking actually. So finally, our clear parts, and we've got two canopy versions. One I'm guessing to be used in open and one enclosed. They look a bit, that one looks wider than that one. So let me just see if I'm imagining that. So it is at the widest point, 10, 11, yeah. So that one at its widest point is 15, and that one at its widest point is 15. So it's my imagination, but somehow it looked wider. But you've got two canopy options, open and closed. And then we've got our front screen, our lenses for the wing lights, the little wing tips there, and then we've got what looks like a rear view mirror, the little compass heads-up display thing. Yeah, that all looks nice. Very clear parts, really nice. Just one flow of plastic in, which is always important with clear parts. Distortion, yeah, we've got a bit, but it's not bad at all. And through the forward glass, it's spot on, perfect. Not even any distortion at the edges. Yeah, really nice. Nothing wrong with those. They're as good a set of clear parts as I've ever seen. So there we have it, the Arma Hobby Hurricane Mk Iic Tropical, kit number 40005. What is my first impressions? Well, this is the first time I've had an Arma Hobbies kit. So my first impression is a genuine first impression of not just the kit, but of the manufacturer. And I am deeply, deeply impressed. Let's start at the beginning. The instructions, they are very clear, step by step. There's written instructions accompanying the pictorial instructions. You've got paint shout outs as you go through. Does everything that you want. It ticks all the boxes really. They might not be the prettiest instructions, but they are technically very functional. So I have no real issues with the instructions at all, other than possibly in one or two places I question the build process, but I could say that about so many manufacturers that it's almost not worth mentioning. When we look at the decals, decals look really good, nice and sharp, bright colours. They're not dull. There's no damage. Possibly slightly thick, but I'm splitting hairs here. I'd say they're as good as anybody's. Yes, they're not Cartograph, but they're also not Tamiya either. So yeah, I think it looks like a good set of decals. And you've got all the stencils and bits and pieces. I wasn't sure if it felt a little bit light from the instructions, but I'm guessing not. It's nice that we've got the 3D printed parts in, but I don't really want to comment on those because I think they're only an initial purchase item. So if you do have them, they're a nice swap out. If you don't have them, actually the kit parts aren't that bad either. So it's not a huge gain. It is definitely a gain, but it's not a huge gain. The plastic parts themselves are terrific. They're crisp. They're very finely detailed, moulded with some real finesse. I mean, I'm thinking about those open hubs on the wheels and the rows of rivets they've put in all sorts of places where other people wouldn't. It reminds you very, very much of Edward at its best. So I think it's a stunning little kit actually. And if it builds up as well as it looks, it's a quality kit. So as always with a first impression, you just don't know how that's going to build up and you know whether you're going to have fit issues or not. But I think it'd be interesting to build this up and sit it next to the Airfix one and see how they compare. Now I've got stuff in my pipeline, so I'm not going to be doing that certainly in the very near future because I've got a number of builds on the go. They're starting to pile up again. But yeah, I think it's a lovely, lovely kit. And I'm glad that I'm saying that because I actually bought this in a bundle with another one of their kits as well. So look out for another Arma Hobby kit being reviewed soon. That is really nice. So if you see this hitting your shops and you wonder what it might be like, you now know what you get in the box. It's a very high quality kit. I think it's really, really nice. I'm looking forward to building it. Hope that was helpful, useful and enjoyable. If you did enjoy the video, you can always hit super thanks and there's also options to pick up something from the merchandise store. Thanks for looking in. You enjoy your modelling and I'll see you very soon. Bye for now.